everybody, and welcome to our federal student loan webinar. This is a hot topic. There are huge changes coming soon, so I know by the number of registrations, there is a lot of interest. I'm Beth Krasno. I am the founder of a student loan benefit called Thrive, and with me today is Aaron Longino. He is going to take this and kind of give you everything you need to know and then some about what's happening with federal student loans, what you need to know, what you need to do. A part of what we offer besides this education is access to student loan advisors. So from what you hear from Erin today, you may say, hey, I need somebody to take a look at my loans. There's a QR code on the bottom of each page. You can scan that to our calendar link and make an appointment to talk to one of the advisors. This is also open to your family members. So hopefully you're going to get a lot of good information today and you'll know exactly what you need to do before this deadline that's coming in just over 30 days. I am also going to keep an eye on the Q&A box. We only have 30 minutes. There's a lot to cover, so I'm only going to hit some of the questions that I see kind of coming over and over and over. If I don't answer or if Aaron doesn't answer your question, use the QR code, reach out, ask your question. We are here as a resource and to help. So with that, Aaron, take it away.
Thank you, Beth. Hello, everyone. As Beth mentioned, I'm Aaron Longino with Thrive Student Loan Advisors. So today we'll talk about all things student loan related, but we'll focus on the upcoming changes. I'll try to keep it a little more conversational. If anyone has any questions as I'm going about, feel free to put your question in the Q&A. We'll try to keep an eye on it. There are about $1.6 trillion in federal student loan debt. About 43 million Americans carrying that debt. Of those 43 million, about 7 million are stuck in the save forbearance, or what I call no man's land of student loans. They're kind of in student loan limbo. Save hasn't been a plan for almost 2 years now. Also, something that isn't up there is another 5 million are expected to go into default in the next year or so. And beginning July 1st, the landscape of federal student loans change. So we'll talk about the Omnibus Bill of 2025, or what they call the Big Beautiful Bill, the changes within as it relates to federal student loans, how this may affect you personally. We won't go too much into the government shutdown. And then we'll talk about income-driven repayment plans, forgiveness, whether it's student loan forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness, or programs like buyback program or TEPSLF. We'll touch on a little bit of them all. So last summer, on the 4th of July, actually, 2025, the Omnibus Bill, or the One Big Beautiful Bill as it was named, passed. There was a lot in there about federal student loans. Some of the things, one of the positive things, was it made permanent the tax-free employer benefit that allows your employer to help you pay your student loans. They won't be taxed. It gives them an incentive to help employees pay down their student loans. One of the major things was the introduction, as it relates to student loans, was the introduction of the Repayment Assistance Plan, or the RAP plan. This plan, after July 1st, will be the only qualified plan available for those who are seeking forgiveness or an affordable payment. In theory, it's supposed to be the option for an affordable payment. We'll get more into the specifics a little later. Parent Plus loans. These are the things, one of the things that are keeping me up at night. Parent Plus loans. The Parent Plus loans market, or borrowers who take out loans for their children's education, but the loans are in their name, are affected the most, in my opinion, by the changes of this bill, myself included. I have Parent Plus loans for my oldest, who's in her second year at university, and I'm affected by this as well. Income-driven repayment plans, or qualified plans. You'll likely hear me refer to them as qualified plans. They're being phased out due to the budget bill as well. July 1st is that deadline when they'll no longer be available. Forgiveness and tax implications. Public service loan forgiveness is always tax-free. Student loan forgiveness had always been tax-free, but Congress allowed that benefit to expire January 1st. So student loan forgiveness could be taxable under certain conditions, could be. So I won't go too much into the taxes. If you have a question about it, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you, but I won't bog you down with those details out of respect for time. So what changes July 1st? As I mentioned, the repayment assistance plan launches. Once it does, that's the only qualified plan moving forward. Anyone with loans July 1st or after will have access to the RAP plan and standard repayment, nothing else. Anyone until July 1st, if you have federal student loans now, you are able to grandfather yourself into existing programs, which by all accounts, all expert accounts will be much more favorable to borrowers. If you're unsure about your loan type or if any of this applies to you, have your loans reviewed before July 1st and we'll be a lot more specific. Grad plus loans are being eliminated after July 1st. Grad plus or graduate plus loans are for those who have exhausted their undergraduate loans but still want to pursue higher education. Grad loans was an excellent way for people to get graduate or postgraduate degrees. They'll be phased out and no longer available to borrowers. Parent plus loans, not only are they limiting what you could take annually for Parent Plus loans to $20,000 a year, but over the lifetime of that particular student is $65,000 a year. If anyone on the call has Parent Plus loans or had Parent Plus loans, you know $20,000, especially for out-of-state tuition, is not enough for a semester, let alone a school year. And $65,000 is about half of what federal borrowers use. They utilize Parent Plus loans for all 4 years of the children's education. So essentially, they're cutting in half the amount of loans the amount of loans from what you need for Parent Plus loans for parents whose only goal is to not allow their children to indebt themselves by going to college and getting an education. A reasonable person, I couldn't prove this, but a reasonable person would suspect that the private student loan market has lobbied our representatives to push people towards private loans, but that's just speculation. Also, the SAVE plan, PAYE, ICR, all of the qualified plans or income-driven repayment plans that were created by the Department of Education are being phased out. When the SAVE plan was thrown out July 18th of 2024, what the court said is that the Department of Education cannot unilaterally supersede the will of Congress, meaning Congress created student loan forgiveness, Congress created the plans that govern student loan forgiveness, and Congress dictated how those plans operate. So the Department of Education, the court said, did not have the authority to create plans, recreate plans, change how plans work. Only Congress did. So all those plans, July 1st, beginning July 1st, are being phased out. Many of you likely have already received notification that you have 90 days to change your plan. So existing borrowers, people that already have student loans in repayment, you can keep access to your qualified plan. Most of them are being phased out over the course of the next year. The original qualified plan, however, depending on when your loans were dispersed, isn't going anywhere. If you're in it, you're able to be grandfathered into it. You can opt into the RAP plan voluntarily. You won't lose any qualified time. But if you leave the RAP plan once you're in it, any qualified time you received while in the repayment assistance plan, you will lose if you change out of it. You can't go back and forth between the plans. For new borrowers, those who have loans on or after July 1st, 2026, The only plans that will be available to you is a standard repayment. It'll be a new specialized standard repayment, or the RAP plan, the repayment assistance plan. All the annual borrowing caps apply to you. You will have no access to graduate plus loans and parent plus loans. After any parent plus loan taken on or after July 1st, 2026 will no longer qualify for forgiveness. Parent plus loans now on their own, normally they don't qualify for forgiveness on their own, but they can be made to qualify. Those taken after July 1st, 2026, they'll have no road towards forgiveness. So when we talk about the RAP plan, and we'll speak about it carefully, what you'll learn with the federal government is there's always the way things are supposed to work versus the way they actually work. Right now, I can't run a projection on SAVE. I can't, or excuse me, on a RAP plan. I can't enroll anyone into it to see how it'll actually work. But the way it's supposed to work, payments are supposed to be between 1 and 10% of your adjusted gross income, depending on the tax bracket that you're in, as opposed to qualified plans as we know them today. They're based on what the IRS calls your discretionary income. They take what you make in a year, your adjusted gross income, plus your family size, the difference between that and 150% of the poverty line. They divide it by 12. That's your discretionary income. The qualified plans were between 5 and 20% of that number, depending on the plan that you chose. RAP, and I'll reiterate this, will only be based on your adjusted gross income. By the very definition or calculation of how the RAP plan monthly payments will be calculated, by the very definition of that calculation or the formula, most borrowers are expected to have higher payments. Most borrowers. In theory, those on the lower income tier shouldn't be affected as much. But again, I cannot run projections on RAP, and I cannot enroll people into it to see how it actually works until after July 1st. There's always the way things are supposed to work with the federal government versus how they actually do. There will be no more $0 a month payments. For those who qualify now in qualified plans, your income is able to dictate a $0 a month payment. If you tell a regular person, if you tell me I have a $0 a month payment, that means I don't have to pay anything. But government math isn't always the same as regular math. A $0 a month payment, when your plan dictates it, counts, excuse me, as a full and on-time payment, and it counts to your respective forgiveness program, whether it's student loan forgiveness that everyone can qualify for, or public service loan forgiveness, which you qualify for based on the work that you do. The RAP plan will also add an extra decade to your repayment period. That's an extra 10 years of interest accruing, an extra 10 years of monthly payments before you're eligible for forgiveness. Qualified plans, as we know them today, for undergraduate students or borrowers will forgive their loans after they've made 240 qualified payments. If you make a payment a month, that's a 20-year repayment. Graduate and parent plus borrowers, after they've made 300 qualified payments, or a 25-year repayment. The RAP plan, however, will forgive loans after you've made 360 qualified payments, or a 30-year repayment. For those that qualify for public service loan forgiveness, your forgiveness, as long as you're properly enrolled into the program, as long as you're in a qualified plan, has been recertified every year, your forgiveness will still come after you've made 120 qualified payments, or a 10-year repayment. Again, that is only for public service loan forgiveness. Everyone else under RAP, it'll be a 30-year repayment. So, as on an earlier slide, the differences between the RAP plan and qualified plans as we know them today, that you're still, until July 1st, you're still able to be grandfathered into existing programs. I cannot stress that enough. If you think the existing programs will work better for you, or you're not sure, have your loans reviewed, and we'll be very specific about whether they'll work for you or not. Under the RAP plan, your payments will be between 1 and 10% of your adjusted gross income. I believe that was box 11 on the most recent year's tax return, as opposed to between 5 and 20% of discretionary income. Discretionary income was calculated to give borrowers the lowest monthly payment possible. That'll no longer be a possibility after July 1st. Another change, a minimum payment under RAP is $10 a month, as opposed to qualified plans as we know them today. The minimum payment was and is $0 a month for those that qualify. Forgiveness under RAP will come after 30 years, an extra decade for most of interest accruing of monthly payments, as opposed to a 20 or 25-year repayment period. Interest, so they'll say interest doesn't accrue under RAP. Interest does or will accrue under RAP. There is a built-in mechanism that used to be under the qualified plans as we know them as well. For those whose income dictates this benefit, under the RAP plan, the Department of Education will pay the interest that accrues above your monthly payment, or they'll match it up to $50. This used to be a feature of some of the qualified plans as we know them today, but the budget bill, when it phased those plans out, it also stripped away that benefit from current qualified plans. Both the RAP and qualified plans as we know them today are eligible for public service loan forgiveness. You will not lose time under either, except once you're in RAP, if you change, you'll lose the qualified time that you made under that specific plan.
Erin, I'm going to ask a quick question because I keep getting questions coming in that are really talking about payments they made and switches to different programs and how it will affect it. Can you speak to that?
So I'll generalize. If you want us to look specifically at your loans and the plans that you switched to, have your loans reviewed, and we'll be a lot more specific. But it depends on the plan that you switched from and to. If you went from one qualified plan to another, you're not losing any qualified time. For example, and it's like this slide teed it up. For those that were on the SAVE plan, the SAVE plan became the SAVE plan from an existing qualified plan. It was repayee. For those that were enrolled into repayee, that became SAVE. You didn't lose any qualified time. For those that were in, let's say, payee, for example, and switched to the SAVE plan, once that became a plan, you didn't lose any qualified time. For those that are trying to be grandfathered into existing programs before July 1st, you won't lose any qualified time at all. So no, you don't lose qualified time from going to one qualified plan to another. Now, if you went from a qualified plan to a non-qualified plan, you won't lose time per se, but you won't gain any new time under that non-qualified plan, as opposed to the RAP plan. Once you're in it, if you leave said plan, you'll lose all the qualified time you've earned under it. That isn't how qualified plans normally work. So I know the slide says SAVE is gone, but the SAVE plan has been gone. The SAVE plan was thrown out by the courts July 18th of 2024. Anyone that's been in no man's land or student loan limbo or SAVE forbearance, essentially your servicer has allowed you to waste the last 2 years worth of qualified time. Not only that, beginning August of 2025, interest began to accrue again. So not only do you have no qualified time, or not even no qualified time, there's not even any non-qualified time that can be converted to qualified time, which is sometimes the case for forbearance and deferments based on temporary programs that you're still able to get the benefit from. But those almost 2 years, almost 24 months of being in a save forbearance, none of that time is convertible to qualified time. You've just wasted, or your servicer has allowed you to waste the last 2 years of qualified time. Anyone that's ever spoken to me or seen one of our webinars will know I'm not a fan of the servicers. They tend to do things like this. So some of the things that have changed on existing plans, there used to be a hardship rule that didn't allow people to go from one plan to another unless they were experiencing economic hardship. That rule has been relaxed, so everyone is able to grandfather themselves into existing programs if it's done correctly, if they don't think the RAP plan will necessarily work for them. Parent Plus loans used to be able to be made to qualify on their own. They never qualified for forgiveness, but they were able to be made to qualify. That will not be the case anymore once the RAP plan goes live. Any Parent Plus loan after July 1st, 2026 will not be eligible for any type of forgiveness whatsoever. Do not miss that deadline. If you have Parent Plus loans, undergraduate loans, on average, they'll double over the course of repayment because of interest. Parent Plus loans will triple on average. Don't get caught without the possibility of forgiveness. Um, Again, you won't lose any time if you are someone who misses the deadline and is forced into the RAP plan and you don't have Parent Plus loans, you have undergraduate or graduate loans, you won't lose any time, but if you switch from the RAP plan, you will. So I won't go through the timeline. This has begun now. If you're in a save plan, you have about 90 days before they kick you off into a standard repayment. The other qualified plans, officially, they'll be dead if you're in one. Um, some next year, some the following year. But I've already seen people's plans, uh, qualified plans, they have to be recertified every year. I've already seen people's plans, like Payee, for example, that expire or that would normally need to be recertified in December or March or April of next year. Once that happens, even if your plan isn't set to expire until 2028, you won't be able to recertify yourself into that plan. Um, so in order not to confuse people, these changes take place July 1st. You may be able to stay in your plan. We'll use Payee as an example for a little while longer. But once that plan needs to be recertified, or once that plan is phased out, it's likely your only options at that point will be the RAP plan or standard, while you still have options now. Don't wait for your plan to expire. Um, Safeguard yourself now. So it's just about June 1st now. What we had been telling people is don't wait until the last minute. Um, there's already almost a 900,000 application backlog with the Department of Education, with a deadline of July 1st that is only expected to grow exponentially. You don't want to be stuck, especially if you have Parent Plus loans. Have those reviewed immediately, but you don't want to be stuck in that backlog where you miss a deadline through no fault of your own. I'm expecting them to be well over a million and a half applications behind once that July 1st deadline gets here, and it's approaching quickly. Um, so when we talk about student loan forgiveness versus public service loan forgiveness, public service loan forgiveness is something created for those who serve the public's trust. Public service loan forgiveness says anyone who either works for the government, it could be local government, city or county, state government, federal government, even tribal governments, our Native American neighbors, or those who work for 501c3s that are tax exempt, qualify for public service loan forgiveness. You have to make 120 qualified payments. A qualified payment is a full on-time payment, um, a full on-time payment in a qualified plan to direct loans. Obviously, they have to be federal loans. Those federal loans have to be direct loans, no FIFO loans, no Perkins loans, no Parent Plus loans, although those all can be made to qualify until July 1st. Um, Once you've made your 120 qualified payments to a qualified plan, as long as you work for a qualified employer, at least 30 hours a week on average, they'll say full time, but it's really 30 hours a week on average. And as long as you recertify that plan every year, 98% of people that qualify for public service loan forgiveness, they never get it. Usually it's because they have not fulfilled one of those boxes. But as long as you do those 6 things, at the end of your repayment period, everything that's left will be forgiven. It works the same with student loan forgiveness. However, it's 240 payments and there's no employment requirement. Um, with public service loan forgiveness, even as the RAP plan goes live, none of those will change, although the qualified employer um, for the first time has been subject to politics. The Department of Education is expected to look at the qualifications of certain employers it deems political. This has never happened before. Usually, public service loan forgiveness is well liked by both sides of the political aisle, and it stays pretty apolitical for the most part. This is the first time politics will affect who qualifies, excuse me, for public service loan forgiveness. If you think you may or you're not sure, have your loans reviewed, and we'll be very specific about whether you do or not. There's not too much new as it relates to the RAP plan and public service loan forgiveness, other than if you switch out of the RAP plan, you'll lose all qualified time that you had underneath it. And the new employer eligibility rule politics affecting that where it never had before. Um, so we always get this question about standard repayments. We've had temporary programs in 2022 and 2023, and it's converted some non-qualified time into qualified time. The standard repayment plan has never been a qualified plan, whether it's consolidated or unconsolidated. However, there is a temporary program called a temporary extended public service loan forgiveness request. Essentially, what that does is it'll convert non-qualified time into qualified time if you repaid your loans under an unconsolidated standard repayment. A temporary extended public service loan forgiveness request will convert that unconsolidated standard repayment, those payments made under an unconsolidated standard repayment, into qualified payments. But a standard, whether it's consolidated or unconsolidated, has never been a qualified plan. As far as a temporary extended public service loan forgiveness request, is a tool we use to convert some non-qualified time into qualified time. 98% of people, as I mentioned, that qualify for public service loan forgiveness, they never get it. Most that do are under a temporary extended public service loan forgiveness request. A public service loan forgiveness buyback, in theory, is an excellent program. You're supposed to be able to take periods of time where you've been in forbearance and deferment. The Department of Education will calculate a monthly payment for that time, and you're able to make one lump sum payment for all the months that you spent in economic hardship deferment or forbearance to convert them from convert them from non-qualified to qualified. I say in theory because in practice, politics, again, has gotten in the way. This was a program created by the previous administration, and this administration simply has not been offering buybacks, but they've just updated with the courts, and it appears as if they're about to. So I'm 50% less skeptical than I was a month ago, but I'm still 50% skeptical. This slide shows you in real numbers the difference between a standard and a qualified plan. This is your average family of student loan borrowers, family of 5, make about $55,000 a year. So you can see the family in a standard repayment which is just the default repayment plan that you receive when your student loans go into repayment, they would be expected to pay $530 a month for a new graduate. It's a ridiculous amount of money. You wouldn't be expected to make now what you would in the future when you're freshly out of school. But that's what your default standard repayment student loan payment would be over the course of repayment, assuming you repaid your loans in a 10-year repayment, although the average is a 20-year. You would have paid $63,638, almost $15,000 more than the $50,000 you borrowed, as opposed to someone in a qualified plan that qualifies for public service loan forgiveness. This borrower would only be expected to pay about $10 a month. The Department of Education would fix in a 5% cost of living increase annually to the projection of what you will pay throughout repayment. At the end of your repayment period, that payment would only have gone up to about $18 a month. You would have paid less than $10,000 over the course of repayment. And at the end of your repayment period, in this case, 120 qualified payments or 10 years, the Department of Education would expect you to have $62,663 left. And that's what they would forgive tax-free. It's not even close the value qualified plans and forgiveness programs bring to borrowers as opposed to the default standard repayment or non-qualified plans. Nobody expected their federal student loans to double and triple over the course of repayment. Forgiveness programs and qualified plans are the answer to that. As I mentioned before, I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Okay. So, as I mentioned before, 98% of people that actually qualify for public service loan forgiveness, they never get it. Usually, in my experience, the servicer has failed them in some way, either by not informing them they're not in a qualified plan or they're not making qualified payments. 90% of them have never recertified their qualified plan, which has to be recertified every year. But there's also other things like borrower qualifications, not having the right student loan type, not converting your loan type so that they do qualify. There's administration difficulties like backlogs and the changing of administrations and political philosophies. So priorities change. Have your loans reviewed will be very specific of what you qualify for and what you need to do to qualify for a forgiveness program if that's your goals for your loans. Parent Plus loans we spoke about. I'm literally pulling my hair out about Parent Plus loans. After July 1st, Parent Plus loans will no longer qualify for forgiveness. After July 1st, if you have Parent Plus loans and a forgiveness program or just an affordable repayment plan is your goal, have your loans reviewed now. It'll be too late. I would almost say relatively soon, really soon, it'll be too late. If you have Parent Plus loans, have them reviewed. You only have until July 1st, and you have to, for Parent Plus loans, you have to jump through several loopholes to grandfather them into existing programs. Don't wait any longer than absolutely necessary. Defaulted loans, in respect of time, I won't go too much into, but a defaulted loan is when you have not made a payment for 270 consecutive days. The worst case scenario, the final stages of default are garnishment, where they'll garnish 15% of every taxable income you receive. And garnishments are about to start back up this fall. If your loans are in default, don't wait. Have them reviewed, have them brought back to good standing. You don't want to be in default, and you most certainly do not want to be in garnishment. Some pitfalls to avoid. The overarching theme is to have your loans reviewed by July 1st. But if you're sitting in that save forbearance, accruing interest, in student loan limbo, wasting qualified time, soon to be forced into a non-qualified, usually more expensive standard repayment, Don't sit there any longer. You should have changed out of your services should have had you change in August of 2024. Don't waste any more time. If you have Parent Plus loans, I want to say this as much as humanly possible. Have them reviewed immediately. That window is almost closed. Um, Anything you borrow after July 1st, even if it's $1, will be subject to the new rules. Have your loans reviewed well before then to make sure you're in a position to meet your own goals for your student loans. Um, this your critical calendar, but we're already halfway through it, more than halfway through it. You have about a month, give or take, to do these things, to have your loans reviewed, to make sure you're safe against the changes that are coming, where most borrowers are expected to pay more for their federal student loans. If you're unsure what to do, have your loans reviewed. If you plan on having your loans reviewed, all we need is your login for the Department of Education's website, studentaid.gov. We try not to go to your services website. There is personal information there, but more importantly, um, I'm not a fan of the servicers. Even their websites are really nonsensical when it comes to information. We want to be sure that we can look at your loans from the time they were dispersed to you until today. Have your login for the Department of Education's website, studentaid.gov. Verify not just your public service loan forgiveness count, but also your student loan forgiveness count. Make sure you're on track to having your loans forgiven. And you're making qualified payments. In order to do that, sign up for a free one-on-one loan review. I don't really like the word free. It costs you time. It's at no cost. Have your loans reviewed. We'll take a look. We'll tell you what stands out to us. We'll make a suggestion as what you should do. You're free to take that information and do those things yourself, or you can hire us to do them for you. For that part, we have a fee, but we'll be very upfront about what that fee is.
Thanks, Aaron. That's such great information. And the questions keep coming, and I know I can't keep on top of it, but the loan review, I think I am paused here. The loan reviews are conducted by our advisors, not your loan servicers. If you have a loan servicer, you're probably very aware of the issues with loan servicers and getting the right information. So Thrive actually has student loan advisors that are independent, that are going to look at your loans and see what you have, give you, advice on what's the best program to be in. And like Aaron said, really walk you through payments, programs, all the things that it's very hard to sometimes get on your own. So if you're interested, we are here for you. But like Aaron said, it's only 31 or so days until these change. So, if you're interested in making some moves or figuring out your best plan to be in before the changes, we'd recommend scheduling a time to talk to one of our advisors sooner rather than later. I think I just looked, and there's about 26 people who signed up just from this webinar. So we know the slots are booking up, but we are here and for all Prime employees. And I should also say this is for Prime clients, employees, but also for your family members. So if you're reviewing this webinar, please feel free to pass on the recording, which I should have said earlier that this is recorded. Everybody will get this recording, but feel free to pass this on to your family members, because that's, very important for everybody who has federal student loans to be on the right page beforehand. And someone did ask Aaron, you'll like this, if they can schedule with you specifically. Use the link. It is going to be divided amongst our advisors, but you may be lucky enough to get Aaron, or you might want to get one of our other advisors. Everyone is excellent. And I just saw one that popped up. There's no more available appointments in May. We're almost at the end of May. Use that arrow, go to June. You still have June. There should be availability in June. So,
and also out of respect for that July 1st deadline, I'm going to open up Sundays in June as well on my calendar. I'm not going to do it until June 1st though, but you'll be able to get an appointment in June if there's no more in May, and we'll make sure you have all the information you need and get it done in time.
Okay, and I think somebody had asked what that review process looks like. I won't go through the whole thing, but like Erin said, have your student aid, studentaid.gov login. That is how our advisors are able to see your loans. If you're not comfortable with our advisors looking at that, there's not a lot that they can do. But the goal is for them to actually have eyes on your loan. It's really the only way that they can make a true recommendation as to what you have, your options moving forward, and then give you the best advice possible. So if you are interested in having somebody have eyes on your loans and give you that information, we are here to help. So we have gone over by 11 minutes, Erin. That's not bad. I know we didn't get to all the questions, but you have access to us. You can always reach out. And thank you all so much for attending today.